Sir, we have served you for 7 years. Is this how it ends?
7 years? I fed you. I trained you. What more do you want?
You promised us settlement. We never failed you.
Promise? You people have taken enough from me already. Pack your things and leave my compound.
Please, sir, we beg you, don't send us away. Please.
Chidi, Nonso, and Emeka did not leave their homes because they wanted adventure. They were sent away because their families believed it was the best way for them to have a future. In their community, the Igbo apprenticeship system was respected. A boy would be sent to live with a master, learn a trade, and serve for a fixed number of years. At the end of that time, the master would settle him so he could start his own life. Their parents trusted the system. They trusted the words of Chief Akpamu, a man known for his tiles and WC toilet business. When the agreement was made, it was clear. The boys would serve for 7 years. They would obey, work hard, and remain loyal. In return, they would be settled. With that promise, the boys were handed over. The day they arrived at Chief Agbamu's house, everything felt new and uncomfortable. They were shown where to sleep and quickly told the rules. No laziness, no complaints. Respect was expected at all times. From the next morning, work began immediately. There were no time to adjust or ask questions. At the factory, the work was heavy and constant. The boys carried cartons of tiles, cleaned WC toilet bowls, swept the compound, loaded trucks, and arranged the showroom. They opened the place early and closed it late. Mistakes were corrected with shouting, not explanation. Still, they did not complain. As time passed, each boy became important in his own way. Chidi handled stock and records carefully. Nonson spoke to customers politely and brought many of them back. Emeka did the hard and dirty work without protest. They followed instructions, respected the chief, and protected the business like it was their own. Years went by. The factory grew bigger, more customers came, the business expanded, but the boys' lives remained the same. They did not earn salaries. They depended fully on the chief. Even so, they stayed focused because they believed in the promise they were given. Everyone in the market knew them. They were known for honesty and hard work. People believed their future was secure. What no one knew was that the promise they trusted was already fading in the mind of the man who made it. Chidi, Nonso, and Emeka understood that their lives now followed one routine. They woke up before everyone else in the house. Sometimes it was still dark when they started cleaning the compound and preparing for the factory to open. There was no excuse for tiredness. Work had to be done every day. At the tiles and WC toilet factory, the boys handled almost everything. They unloaded trucks filled with heavy cartons of tiles. They cleaned WC toilet bowls and sinks until they shined. They arranged the showroom neatly and made sure customers were comfortable. When workers were absent, the boys covered for them. When machines needed cleaning, they were the ones called. Chief Agbamu rarely explained things with patience. When mistakes happened, he shouted. When things went well, he stayed silent. The boys learned quickly not to expect praise. Food was given, but never in excess. Clothes were provided only when necessary. Everything was counted and later used as a reminder of how much the chief claimed he had spent on them. Chidi showed strong discipline. He learned how to count stock, record sales, and track deliveries. He often stayed back after closing to make sure figures were correct. Nonso became the face customers trusted. He remembered names, prices, and preferences. Some customers came only when they knew Nonso was around. Emeka took on the hardest tasks. He cleaned toilets, carried broken tiles, and stayed behind to lock up when others had left. As the years passed, the factory expanded. More goods arrived, more money passed through the office. Chief Akbamu's lifestyle improved. New properties were added. His name became popular in business circles. The boys noticed this growth and it gave them hope. They believed their settlement would be big because they had helped build everything. Sometimes customers would praise the boys openly. They would say the business ran well because of them. Chief Akbamu would smile, but later remind the boys to stay humble. Slowly, small signs appeared. The chief began to delay discussions about the future. Whenever settlement was mentioned, he changed the topic or laughed it off. Still, they stayed loyal. They believed patience was part of the system. They believed silence was wisdom. They believed the promise was safe. What they did not understand was that 7 years of hard work does not always protect a promise when greed is involved. By the third year, The boys no longer felt like newcomers. The factory had become their normal life. They knew every corner of the compound, every sound of the machines, and every regular customer who walked through the gate. Their days were long, but they had learned not to complain. They rarely left the factory or the house. While other young people their age talked about school, friends, and rest, Chidi, Nonso, and Emeka focused only on work. There were no weekends for them. Even on public holidays, the factory opened and the boys were expected to be present. Food was simple and sometimes not enough, but they enjoyed it. When they fell sick, they still reported to work unless it became serious. Missing a day meant anger and accusations of laziness. The boys learned to hide pain and push through exhaustion. Chief Akpamu depended on them more than he admitted. When suppliers came, the boys handled arrangements. When customers complained, they solved problems. When workers argued, the boys kept peace. Yet, whenever praise came from outsiders, Chief Akpamu accepted it alone. Occasionally, the boys talked among themselves at night. They shared their worries quietly so no one would hear. Chidi encouraged patience and reminded them of the agreement. Nonso believed hard work would always be rewarded. Emeka listened more than he spoke, but he never disagreed. As time went on, Chief Akpamu began to change. He became more distant and more controlling. He monitored the boys closely and questioned their loyalty without reason. Small mistakes were treated as serious offenses. Trust slowly turned into suspicion. Still, the boys stayed. They believed leaving early would destroy everything they had endured. They told themselves that suffering was temporary and the settlement would make it worthwhile. By the end of the third year, they were no longer boys in age, but they were still treated as children. They were learning a painful lesson without realizing it, that dedication does not always guarantee fairness. And the longer they stayed silent, the harder it became to speak when it truly mattered. By the fourth year, Chidi, Nonso, and Emeka had become the foundation of the factory. Chief Akpamu trusted them with keys, money, and important decisions. Yet, he never spoke clearly about their future. Whenever the boys tried to bring up the issue of settlement, he brushed it aside and told them to focus on work. The factory continued to grow. New designs of tiles arrived, the WC toilet section expanded, more customers came from different areas. The boys handled increased pressure without complaint. They worked longer hours and carried heavier loads. Even when hired workers failed to show up, the boys filled the gap. Chief Akpamu's lifestyle changed noticeably. He bought new cars and began building houses. He traveled more and spent less time at the factory. When he was away, the boys ran everything. Sales were recorded properly, customers were treated well, and goods were delivered on time. Some customers started to notice the imbalance. They wondered why the boys still lived like apprentices despite the success of the business. A few asked questions directly, but Chief Akpamu always answered with confidence, saying everything was under control. At home, the rules became stricter. The boys were questioned about small expenses and warned repeatedly about loyalty. Chief Akpamu reminded them that he had taken them in and fed them. He spoke as if their years of service were favors he had done for them. Late at night, doubts crept in. Nonso began to worry about the silence around settlement. Emeka wondered why the chief avoided discussions about the future. Chidi still believed patience would be rewarded, but even he felt uneasy. Despite the warning signs, the boys stayed focused. They feared that speaking up too early might destroy their chances. They continued to serve with honesty, hoping that time would correct everything. What they did not know was that silence was slowly giving Chief Akpamu the confidence to do what he had already decided, to break a promise without fear of consequence. The sixth year arrived quietly, but its weight was heavy on the boys. At this point, everyone in the market assumed Chidi, Nonso, and Emeka would soon be settled. Customers congratulated them in advance. Some even asked where they planned to open their own shops. Each question increased their hope and their fear. Inside the factory, Chief Akpamu's behavior changed again. He reduced communication with the boys and began to keep certain documents away from them. He hired new workers and introduced them slowly, without explanation. The boys noticed, but they said nothing. Work became harder. Chief Akpamu raised his expectations and lowered his patience. Small errors were punished with insults, delays were treated as betrayal. The boys endured it all, believing they were being tested before settlement. Chidi tried to prepare wisely. He advised the others to stay calm and avoid conflict. Nonso continued to protect customer relationships. Emeka worked harder than ever, afraid that any mistake could be used against them. At home, the chief's tone grew colder. He began to speak about how expensive it was to train apprentices and how many masters were never repaid for their efforts. These comments were made in the boys' presence, as if to warn them. The boys began to feel unsure. They realized the promise they relied on existed only in words, not in writing. Still, they believed tradition would protect them. They believed 7 years of loyalty could not be ignored. As the 6th year ended, the boys prepared themselves emotionally. They expected challenges, but they still trusted the system. They did not yet understand that the real test was not of their patience, but of Chief Akpamu's integrity. The 7th year began with quiet tension. Chidi, Nonso, and Emeka felt it from the first day. Every task felt heavier, not because the work had changed, but because the end was finally in sight. This was the year everything they had endured was supposed to make sense. Customers continued to praise them openly. Some said the boys deserved their own shops. Others joked that Chief Akpamu would soon lose his best workers. Each comment made the chief uncomfortable. He laughed in public, but his face hardened whenever the topic came up. Inside the factory, things shifted. The boys were slowly removed from important duties. Keys were collected. Decisions were made without them. New workers took over roles the boys had handled for years. No explanation was given. When Chidi finally requested a clear discussion about settlement, Chief Akpamu reacted sharply. He accused them of becoming proud and ungrateful. He reminded them of food, shelter, and training as if those were favors, not part of the agreement. The boys remained respectful. They did not argue. They reminded him gently of the 7-year understanding. That was when Chief Akpamu ended the conversation. He told them to wait until he was ready. Weeks passed, but nothing moved forward. The boys worked quietly, waiting. Their hope was now mixed with fear. As the final months approached, the silence became unbearable. They understood then that something had gone wrong. The promise they trusted was slipping away. The day it happened did not come with warning. It was a normal morning. Chidi, Nonso, and Emeka arrived early, as they always did. They cleaned the factory floor, arranged the tiles, and prepared the showroom. Nothing felt different until Chief Akpamu called them into his office. He did not ask them to sit. He spoke quickly and without emotion. He said the business was facing challenges. He said he had spent too much on them over the years. He said settlement was not possible. Then he told them to leave. When Chidi calmly reminded him of the 7-year agreement, Chief Akpamu's tone changed. He accused them of stealing his money. He claimed sales were missing and said he had been watching them for a long time. The accusation shocked the boys. They had handled his business with honesty for years, and now their integrity was being questioned. Nonso tried to defend them, explaining that all records were clear and accurate. Emeka stood silently, his hands shaking. Chief Akpamu refused to listen. He said the accusation was enough reason to send them away without settlement. He warned them never to return or speak against him. No money was given, no apology followed. They were told to pack their belongings immediately. Within minutes, 7 years of service ended. Emeka packed his small nylon bag. Nonso looked around the room in disbelief. Chidi bowed his head and thanked the chief, even though his voice shook. They walked out of the factory gate together. No workers followed them. No customer knew what had happened. The place they had helped build continued operating behind them as if nothing had changed. Outside, the street was busy. People passed without noticing them. The boys stopped at a corner and stood quietly. None of them knew what to say. Going home felt impossible. Staying felt uncertain. They had no money, no shelter, and no plan. Only their skills remained. The reality finally settled in. The system they trusted had failed them. As they began to walk, unaware of what lay ahead, a familiar face watched them from across the road. A man who had seen their dedication for years was about to step into their story. Chidi, Nonso, and Emeka had walked for a long time before anyone spoke to them. The sun was high, and their legs were tired, but stopping felt pointless. They were no longer apprentices, yet they had nowhere to go. Each step felt uncertain. As they crossed a familiar street, a car slowed down beside them. The driver called out their names. They stopped in surprise. It was Chief Obi, a wealthy customer who had bought tiles and WC toilets from Chief Akpamu for years. He knew the boys well. In fact, he trusted them more than he trusted the shop owner. Chief Obi asked a simple question. Why were they not at the factory? Chidi answered honestly. He explained everything. The 7-year agreement, the hard work, the morning they were sent away, and the accusation of stealing. He spoke calmly, without anger or exaggeration. Chief Obi listened carefully. He did not interrupt. He remembered how these boys handled his orders personally, how they never cheated him, how they stayed late to correct mistakes. He remembered how the factory ran smoothly only when they were present. When Chidi finished speaking, Chief Obi was silent for a moment. Then he shook his head. He said he had watched them for years and knew they were honest. He said hard work without integrity was useless, but integrity without opportunity was painful. He asked them one question that changed everything. If they were given a chance, would they still work with honesty? All three answered without hesitation, yes. Chief Obi told them to follow him. They were confused but obeyed. At a quiet place, he explained his decision. He said he believed in investing in people, not just businesses. He said the boys had already proven their value through character, not words. He promised to help them start on their own, not because he felt pity, but because he trusted their discipline. The boys were shocked. They had expected sympathy, not opportunity. As they sat there listening, hope slowly returned. Not loud, not sudden, but real. They did not know how far this help would go yet, but one thing became clear. Not everyone who watches your suffering is blind to your effort. And that was how their story began to turn, quietly and without noise. Chief Obi did not waste time. Within weeks, he guided Chidi, Nonso, and Emeka on how to start properly. He did not give them money blindly. He taught them discipline, planning, and accountability. After that, he lent 10 million naira to each of them, clearly stating that it was a loan, not a gift. The boys accepted with gratitude and fear, knowing this was a rare opportunity. Each of them opened their own business using the skills they had gained from Chief Agbamu. Chidi invested in selling tiles, setting up a small warehouse and showroom. Nonso focused on WC toilets and plumbing materials, managing deliveries and customer orders efficiently. Emeka decided to invest in household items, selling things like kitchenware, cleaning supplies, and essentials that people needed every day. They ran their businesses separately but supported one another when challenges came. They applied the same principles they had practiced for years: honesty, hard work, and consistency. They worked long hours, avoided waste, and treated customers with respect. Slowly, each business began to grow steadily. Trust in their names spread quickly. Within 2 years, all three businesses had grown beyond expectations. Customers trusted them because of their honesty. Profits increased steadily. Before the end of the year, they had tripled the money Chief Obi gave them. They returned every naira they owed him with gratitude and respect. Chief Obi was proud, not because of the money, but because his trust had not been wasted. Meanwhile, things fell apart for Chief Agbamu. Without the boys, the factory struggled. New workers could not handle customers well. Records became messy. Complaints increased. Customers slowly left, especially those who trusted the boys. Sales dropped. Debts rose. Chief Agbamu tried to recover, but it was too late. He sold properties to survive. His name lost respect in the market. The same people who once praised him now avoided him. The accusation he made against the boys followed him quietly. Trust was gone. One day, Chief Agbamu heard about 3 young businessmen doing well in the same trade. When he found out they were Chidi, Nonso, and Emeka, regret set in, but pride kept him silent. He never apologized. The boys never celebrated his downfall. They focused on their growth and helped others the right way. They understood something important. Success built on injustice never lasts, but success built on integrity stands firm. Hard work without integrity destroys trust. Power without fairness destroys legacy. And sometimes the best revenge is not fighting back, but walking away with your skills and letting life respond.